Good morning. Welcome to our first webinar. Starting off with something nice and simple with Xero Back to Basics. Sorry if there's any technical difficulties. This is the first time I've done one of these, so we'll just roll with it, but hopefully everything goes to plan. So thank you all for coming. The aim of this webinar is to just take you back to, I guess, the start of Xero and the real basic stuff and what you might not know. It's kind of one of those you don't know what you don't know sort of scenarios. The things we'll cover today is the best practice for using the dashboard. So what you can see there, what you can and can't do, what you can hide and things like that. The different coding methods. So when you're in your bank rec, so that's matching, transfers, using the discuss tab, things like that. The ability to add copies of your receipts and things to your transactions. So if you're just coding them straight from the dashboard rather than using bills, you can add a copy of the receipt from in there. Bank rules and how to use them, when and where they can come in quite handy. Going through your GST returns and some troubleshooting around that. And just general troubleshooting if something goes wrong, you need to recode something or things like that. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to use the demo company for this today, and yeah, hopefully you get something out of it. 1 second, where is it? There it is. Cool. Hopefully everyone can see that all right. So if you're familiar with Xero, you'll know that this is what the dashboard looks like. If you're using invoices and bills, then these things will be populated down the side here. Your bank accounts will sit on the left here. This is a demo company, so there's no live bank feeds or anything like that. But this is generally what it will look like with your bank logo and everything in there. You can order these however you like. So we just hit edit dashboard up in here, and you can drag them up and down, order things around however you like. If you like to see your invoices at the top, and bills, most people aren't using this. You can hide and unhide things. So if you've got an old bank account on the screen that you don't want to see, you can just untick it and that will disappear it. So if you've got like your main bank accounts and things that are in a bit of a funny order, or you've changed bank accounts, we can reorder those to sit in the order that you want just by dragging and dropping. Or you can hide these things if you're not using invoicing and bills, etc. That's pretty straightforward. You just got to remember to hit save changes when you're finished. The cash in and out, so that's pretty straightforward. That just gives you a summary of what's coming out of your bank statements or your bank accounts over in those months. Ideally, your in will be higher than your out. Sometimes it won't. And invoicing, so this is a snapshot of your, if you are using Xero invoicing, of what's owed to you and what you owe. And from here, you can click on any of these things to get to your overdues, your awaitings, any drafts, to create a new invoice, new bill, etc. Same with the invoices, bills, same with both. The account watch list, so this is set on your chart of accounts codes. So if you've got certain codes that you want to have see where your spending is at any certain time. So this is just a month summary and a year to date. So that's your financial year to date. Let me know and we can set those up with whatever accounts you want to see. If you want to see wages and things like that, so let me know, we can see those, and then we can have that sitting at the top so you can see how much you've spent on wages or whatever for the month. So your bank account is in here, so you've got ability to go quickly to your account transactions, reconciliation, etc. Most of you probably won't be doing that, but just in case. So this is the number that we want to look at. This reconcile 28 items. So once we're in here, this is our bank rec. So there's the reconcile tab. Most people won't have the cash coding tab. bank statements and account transactions. So we'll just quickly go through these two before we come back to the reconcile tab. So the bank statement is basically what's come from the bank. So this is obviously the date of the bank and the payee and all the exact references that you'll see on your bank statement, amounts, and then it shows whether it's been imported via a CSV or whatever sort of upload, or if it's a bank feed. Most of you will say bank feed, ideally. And then when it'll say whether it's reconciled or not. So you can search within here if you know there's something in here that you need. This will search the reference and things like that. Amounts, dates, or reconciled, unreconciled. For some reason you can't sort in here. So if you want looking for unreconciled items, you can sort it by status. The account transactions is what you've told Xero it is. So basically there's the two different types. So you've got your bank statement and then you telling Xero what it is. So then those match off and cancel each other out basically. The account transactions is where you would possibly go if you'd made a mistake in some coding of some sort. So within here you can sort by status, you can sort by amount, date, description, etc. Once this amount starts to build up in terms of the length of time you've been on Xero, I wouldn't suggest sorting by description because it'll just be massive. If you're looking for a really big amount or a really small amount, you can sort by spent or received. So you might have to click it a couple of times to get it in the right order. But say you knew you were looking for a $10,000 transaction and you sorted it and you could scroll to the 10,000s. Just depends what you're looking for, generally by date. But the unreconciled and reconciled can be quite handy if you're looking for something that you know is not quite right. You can sort by that and make sure that there's nothing here. There's nothing showing in your reconcile tab, but these two balances are out. That may be something in here. So the search functionality comes into its own there. So you can use a description, contact, amounts, etc. to search. Same as in the bank statement tab. But from here, these are live, so you can go into the transaction from here. Right, back to reconcile. So if you're using invoicing and bills, ideally a lot of your transactions will come up like this with the green auto match. And those are pretty straightforward. If you've got lots of transactions that are for a similar amount or the same amount, make sure that you are matching to the right one. So this one here, you can see it's got invoice 35 reference from the person. The person who's paid the money has put reference invoice 35. And that's what it's matching to. So that's perfect. And this one looks pretty good. Same date, etc. This one obviously doesn't have a bill attached to it. So if we try to match these, oh yep, take that back. It does have bills. So for this one, because you've got two amounts, you're paying two amounts in one go. You just need to come in and tick off the two that you want to pay, and match them off. That tidies that off. So for the tabs, so the match one, so this matches to any bills, invoices, depending on which direction the money's going in or out, bills, invoices, or spend or receive money, or transfers. So basically any bank related transaction that you've created in Xero, or a transaction that's going to be paid or received, you can match to it in here. So it'll sit in here. So you can see the different little references here. So the little out ones, those are bills. And that little in out one, that's a spend money transaction that's been created. I don't recommend creating too many of those if you can help it, because they can throw your bank well out of balance. This one doesn't have a bill in here to pay. It's got a little part payment by the looks of it, but we'll just pretend that's not there. So for this one, we would use the create tab. We would go city limousine. Some money in, so we'll just call it sales. And for something like this, it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing exceptional about it. You wouldn't worry about the description. If it was, say, money coming in from an insurance company for a claim or a refund or something, you might put a description as to what it was related to. If it was money going out for, say, $2,200 to Noel Leeming or something like that, you might put a description, because I would kind of go, hang on a minute, is that an asset? What have you bought there? So to head that question off, you're better off just to put a description. If it's, you know, $1,500 to Joe's repair garage, you might put a description for that as a service or something like that, if it was, or, you know, or if it was tires or something like that, just to say what it was rather than have me ask the question, basically. But for this one, it's pretty run-of-the-mill. So if it's, you know, warehouse stationery or something like that, you just put stationery or nothing, unless it's a high value. So we can just OK that. This one is money coming in. So let's pretend that this is a transfer to the other bank account, or from the other bank account, sorry. So for this one, we would put transfer. If you have multiple bank accounts, you'll get a little drop down here. If you just have the one, then it'll default to that one. So if you had a credit card and a savings account and a GST savings account, a tax savings account, or whatever, some people have quite a few, then you'd have the drop down there. So you can just OK that. We don't need a reference for a transfer. And then ideally on the other side, there would be $2,000 going out that we would then match to in green. Off, but hard to demo that because I don't have live data. But rightio, and this is a good example of where we could use a bank rule. So because bank fees are something generally happens once a month, same transaction reference, everything's pretty consistent. We don't want to have to code them every time. So we can just go create bank rule. I'll open that in a new tab so I don't lose that. So if you don't know how to do that, if you right click on your mouse when you're hovering over something, it brings up this little menu and you can open in a new tab, or you can hold control on your keyboard when you're, oopsie, that didn't work, sorry. Sorry, keyboard's not working. I will, yeah, usually when you control, I'll control it opens in a new tab. Okay, so this is the bank rule. It'll default, there's 3 different types of rules. There's a spend money rule, receive money rule, or transfer money rule. It'll default to the type of transaction it is, apart from maybe if it's a transfer money. Okay, let's go. So spend money, so we go create bank rule, defaulted to spend money rule. This, you may need to change this depending on what the rule is. So this one's probably okay. This one you probably do want to save to all, because you may have, you know, a cash contribution or interest or anything like that coming through from this banking payee. So you don't necessarily want, if it's any condition, then if it just matches that, it will think it's a bank fee and code it to that. But you really want it to match with all of these conditions. So if there's a certain amount or anything like that, you can add extra. So if you can say, okay, well, anything that's less than, you know, $20 or $15 is going to be a bank fee. So you could set that as a rule as well, so it doesn't code anything other than that you don't you're not sure about. And you can delete. Watch out for ASB ones, because they sometimes have a lot of numbers at the start. So I would change those to contains and delete the numbers, just to make sure you're not picking it. It's not going to exclude everything. So equals, it has to be exactly that. Contains, it can just contain those words. And then you've got, it starts with blank. You generally don't use this too much. But so the kid, if your rule's not working, it's probably because your conditions are not quite right. So just have a play around with those and see if you can figure out one. So this is the contact for the transaction. So if it's someone you've coded to, you've paid or spent money with before, it'll be there ideally. If not, just type it and it'll create a new one. So this is if you want to allocate a set amount to a different code. So if you said, right, we with the bank fee, we have $5 of it every month is personal. So this could work if you had your say phone landline internet or something like that, and you knew that your internet was always $100 and $50 of it should be personal every month. You could allocate it in this line like that. That would be a good example of when that would happen. If you had, say, also if you were paying off a phone, and you had it set up as a hire purchase, which you should do. So if you buy a phone on your phone bill, let me know, because I'll bring it in and we can claim all the GST up front. It's just like an HP. We can set the amount to come off automatically each month and go to the right code. If you had something that was always 50-50 or something like that, or if it was a home office cost that was going through the business, we could set the home office amount to be, say, 10% claim, 90% personal, etc. In this box here. So save that fee there, and then if we go, rest is the bank fees. Whoopsies. Click on it. No GST. That should default to the code. We don't use regions, so that's a thing. Sorry, a tracking category, which we're not using here. And so that will code $5 to drawings and the rest to bank fees. The reference, you can just leave that from the reference, or by me if you want to write your own reference. The title, the name of the rule is quite important, because if you want to come and find it later, if you end up with quite a few rules, I would suggest writing a decent name. So for this, I would put Ridgeway, and then hit save. It will take you back out, and it will have applied the rule. So you can, if you want to see how that would split, you can go view details. So you can see there it's put $5 the drawings and $10 the bank fees. Different thing we can say, you don't need to do that every time. You can just match it off. I'll see if I can find another one of those. Might be more than one bank fee in here. Yeah, so there's another one there that's automatically matched. So you can just okay that one. There's a rule that someone else has set up in the past in the demo already, so that would just be going. So in here we can go click on that rule there, the rule name. It will take us into the rule and tell us what it's doing. So it's saying when we buy stuff from 7-Eleven, it's probably generally like milk and things like that. So they've coded that to office expenses. I would code it to staff expenses, but either. So then we can just okay that. So that's kind of rules. For transfer rules, you can do them as well. So let's pretend this is a transfer. We can create a rule for transfers, which is very handy. So only create it on one bank account, because otherwise you'll end up with double ups and it'll throw your bank out of balance. But it is very handy if you're doing lots of transfers. You can just quickly go through and take them all off, and then in the other bank account they'll all show and just match off. So this, you could, if you had multiple accounts, you might want all conditions match, and you might want, you might have a couple of lines here, just because the payee probably is going to be the same. So you might want a reference or something else to distinguish which bank account it is. So the bank account will be the other bank account that it's going to. You wouldn't want to choose during bank rec, because otherwise what's the point of having a role? You may as well just do it in the bank rec. So reference, leave it as it is, and you'll need to do transfers to and transfers from. So the rule will only work. So this rule would be a transfer, because the references will be different. So you can't really set one rule for in and out. So this can be savings, and transfer from savings would be the opposite. So, and you run it only on the one account. Cool, and you hit save. So then that's giving you a transfer to savings. So that will, so there's just, as you're going through and doing your rec, you just need to be aware to have a quick glance at that rule or that description there, which is another reason it's important to put a decent rule name. Otherwise, you can't really check it as you're going through. So you just okay that. So that's kind of bank rules. If there's any questions, then flick them through on the chat. Otherwise, we'll carry on. So, oh, where am I? Sorry, I've got 3 screens, so my mouse gets lost sometimes. So that's pretty much the reconcile screen. If you have copies of receipts that you'd like to add, you can, if you've got the Xero app, you can take a photo, save it into Xero files. That is the easiest way, probably. If you've got, I'll show you Xero files. The Xero files is in here. This is if you're not using HubDoc, of course. So you've got this unique email address, so you can email things in straight from wherever. So if you've got an email copy of a receipt or something like that, you can email it into there and it'll just sit here waiting. Or you can upload from your desktop, or you can, if you've got the app, you can take a photo. So within the app, I'll quickly show you what it looks like. I'm not sure if I can get into the demo company. Demo company. So this is what the app looks like. I'll stop sharing for a second so we can see it bigger. That's the app. And if you hit the 3 dots in the top, can you read it? It's very white. I don't know how to share my screen. 3 dots in the top corner. This is on Android. I'm not 100% sure on Apple. You might have to just have it play. And then hit Files and Box. And then from there, there's the 3 dots, and you can take a photo up the top there. There's a list. I don't know if you can read that, but take a photo and then save it. And then that will appear back. That will appear in here. So from here, if you're in the, I'll just take a test one. So I can show you what it means. Sorry. Photo, just a random picture. Okay, so that's all added there. So if say I took a picture of the receipt for this transaction here, I can go, Cooper Street Bakery, expenses because it was some morning tea. Got that code in the demo company. What can we call it? Let's just call it office expenses because that's what they seem to be doing. So just morning tea. And in the Add Details tab, there's this little box here. So that's the files. That's the file symbol. So that generally, whenever you see that, it takes you to the file library or upload. So from here, you could upload direct if you had it on your computer, or you can add from file library. So you can see this is the picture I just took. So we can tick that and add one file. So that will mean that that transaction or that receipt is forever saved against that transaction. So you don't have to worry about keeping the paper copy or anything like that. You've got it there now. And if we ever need to look back, we've got it. It's done. And you can save transaction from there. Cool. So that is sort of the gist of uploading. Where am I? Sorry, the mouse is all over the place. Let me just double check what else we were going to go through. So to be through the dashboard, the different options, so matching, creating, transfer, discuss. So the discuss tab, if you've got something you're not sure what to do with it, you can make a note in here. So yeah, so just, you know, make a little note of what it's for or something like that. If you've got a bookkeeper or if you need or if you're dealing with someone else, or you need to go back and find the receipt or something like that, you make a note for yourself, you can make a note for your bookkeeper, or if you need to, you can make a note for me. Flip me an email and say, hey, I've put a few notes in the discuss tab, can you have a quick look because I'm not sure where to code them, or something like that. Just make sure you hit save, otherwise it won't save it. And that will just give me an idea of what you're not sure about. I sometimes use it for GST clients. If I'm doing their GST, I can make a note in here to ask the question or ask for a copy of the invoice or whatever like that. So it's quite handy if you're not sure what you're doing. So cool. So if you need to split a transaction, so say you went to Noel Leeming and you bought a laptop for, you know, $1,800, and you bought a printer for $500, and you bought 3 reams of paper to go with the printer and some ink. If you needed to say that, well, there's one close transaction if there is one in here. No, we'll just pick a small one. If you need to split things out, that's where that add details button comes in handy. So you could put that and you call that office equipment, printer. It would be a low value asset, so assets under $500 or under $1,000 now. I don't have a code for that, so we'll just call it office expenses, but generally I'd put that into low value assets, and then say, so, and then paper and ink, so that was $80. Cheap, but printing code, printing is stationery. There you go, so you can split that all out. If something like that, I would suggest adding a copy of the receipt, and then you can hit save transaction. This one won't let me because it's doesn't match, but that's how you would separate those lines out. Let's get to that one for now. Right, so general rule would be to make sure you've coded everything before you look at your GST return. So that would be making sure that matches that. So this is where the differences can come in. So this is the statement balance per the bank. So that's always going to be on this bank statement here. And this is where you can get out of sync if you do some things in here or create transactions by accident or things like that that affect this side. They won't affect the bank statement side because that's obviously set in stone. So that's what's at the bank. So that's where you can get in a bit of trouble. So making sure these two match is important, especially if there's nothing left here. They'll never match if there's something here, unless it's two transactions in and out for the same amount. So making sure those are cleared, which is easy enough to do. Generally, right, so we can code off a few more of these, get rid of them, so we're not quite so far out. Cool, close enough. And for your bank statement, so your GST return, you're in here, GST return, under accounting. If it doesn't show up in here, just go to reports. And it'll give you all your Xero reports, and down to taxes and balances, put a star next to the GST return. That'll make sure it appears in that drop down report going forward. Let me just make this up. You wouldn't have to do that normally. That's normally what it is. So if you have got a return due, sorry, I skipped too far ahead. If you have got a return due, it would sit in here, and you can just click on it, and it would take you to it. Any historical returns would sit in here under final returns, and you'd have they group up into their financial year. If you are midway through a GST period, which say we are now, June, July, would be due at the end of August. So we have the preview period so far. And this will give us all the transactions that we've coded so far. So this looks like a old school GST return. It'll have all your amounts, it'll have your date, your due date in here, return basis. So that should be, most people are on payments basis, few people on invoice basis. It should match what you are at the IRD. So if it does say invoice basis, check with me, because you may not be on invoice basis. You may just have the GST set up wrong in Xero. So we might need to do some adjustments to fix that. So these are your total GST-able sales, calculating down to your GST amount, and total GST purchases, and down to your GST refund, or that will say payment if it's the other way around. So that's pretty straightforward. The GST audit report is where all the transactions sit. So generally it defaults into date order, but generally I would suggest putting it into account order. So just click on account and it will sort it into alphabetical order. That will give you a chance to click through and see if anything looks odd. So if there's something that looks like a bank fee or interest or something like that sitting in here, then that's probably not right. If there's anything that was personal sitting in here, then that's not right either. That should be in drawings with no GST. If it's not, basically, if it's not a good or service, it shouldn't be in here. A business related good or service. So most things pretty straightforward. I mean, obviously, if you've got suppliers that are not GST registered, then those aren't going to be there. But so looks pretty good. Most things look pretty straightforward. It also will help you pick up any coding errors. So you've got an office expenses, you know, $1,200 or $1,500 or something like that, and it should be an asset, something like that. Will help you pick up those sorts of things. If you've got something coded to office equipment that's an asset that should actually be in office expenses or printing and stationery or something like that, then, or low value assets, then you can recode it from here. So from here you can right click and open it in a new tab. I suggest doing that because otherwise you'll have to go through multiple clicks to get back into here. Open it in a new tab, fix it up, whatever you need to do. So you can, with an invoice with a payment attached, you can generally only change the account. So if the GST amount's wrong, you'll have to remove this payment. We can go through that in more detail in the next webinar. But you can update. So like this is just coded. So if it's just a spend money or receive money, you can just edit it from there, adjust it, attach files, etc., and then update. Okay. Into the GST on income. So it always goes in the order of expenses, income, then no GST. So from here, look through, make sure it's all generally going to be sales. I mean, if you've sold an asset, that should be in here. Watch for any negatives in here. Like this is probably okay because it's just a refund of a subscription, so it's just in and out there. But any other big negatives, just be aware that these maybe should be sales, income on sales, and vice versa. If it's a credit note or something like that, it's generally going to be okay to just be a negative. But otherwise, just keep an eye on anything that's coded weirdly. And down the bottom here is your no GST. So that'll be your bank fees, your drawings, wages, salaries, anything like that. So this one here looks a bit odd, so it probably should have GST on it. So that's one you would maybe investigate. Oopsie. So we'll have a look at that invoice. So for some reason this invoice has got no GST on this part. So you might want to fix that up. So yeah, so this is sort of your final check of your GST before you file it. I recommend it for every time you do GST to come through and have a look at this report and just double check, make sure everything, just a sense check really to make sure everything looks right. If you're not sure or if you want me to review it for you, just let me know. And from here, it's pretty straightforward. Save it as final. And up top, I don't know if it'll appear for this because it's the demo company, but we'll have a look. Okay, so it's because we're mid-period, it's not really just file it, but generally it would come up with a box with a button, file now with IID, and you just click that, put on your IID login credentials, and then it's done. And you go into your internet banking and set up the payment if you've got to make a payment. So yeah, that's general GST. Quite brief, so if you've got any questions, let me know. And the other thing would be to have a quick, I'm just going to quickly run through some troubleshooting. So if your bank account is out of balance, there's a couple of things you can check. So you come into here, sort by reconciled and unreconciled. So just sort it, click it twice, and if there's anything that's unreconciled, then that might be one of the reasons you're out of balance. So this here, someone's put a payment against this invoice, which hasn't matched to anything on the bank account. So if it's wrong like that, we can just remove and redo from here. If you need to adjust it, open it up and edit it. I don't recommend using unreconcile if you can help it, because that will break the link between the bank transaction and the Xero transaction. There's kind of the two different ones. The bank one is the one that's set in stone, that's what's come through from the bank. That we're trying to tell Xero what it is, and the Xero transaction is the one you've created. If you unreconcile, it will break that link, but that Xero transaction will still sit there. So it will be just like that payment that we just got rid of, and it will just sit there waiting to be matched. And if there's never going to be anything to match it to, it'll always throw your bank account out. So that's where you would remove and redo that. But generally remove and redo it from the start. And so this is a payment that's been matched to an invoice. So say this was wrong, we can just hit remove and redo, and that gets rid of that Xero transaction. Gets rid of that Xero transaction and just puts the bank transaction back again into the bank. So you can see that there, it's just appeared back here. Because this one is correct, we can just rematch it. But that's one place to start. Bank statement, do the same thing. You obviously can't sort by status here, but you can search by status. So you can see that there shouldn't really be anything unreconciled in here. That could create a double up if there was something unreconciled. So we don't want that. The other thing to check is this reconciliation report, and it appears up there. So you can choose the end of your GST period. We'll just choose today's date for this example. but choose the end of your GST period. If the end of the GST period falls on, say, Friday to Monday, then just pick the next Tuesday or a midweek day to make sure it matches, because sometimes the timing of the bank feeds throws it out, and it can show that it's reconciled when it's actually not. So just pick a midweek date. So we'll just pick last Wednesday, be fine. So these nice little black ones here are the ones that are unreconciled. So that's fine, we know about those. Generally, if you're looking at your GST period and you're not, and you've coded all your transactions, you won't have anything like that. If you've got an amount out of balance here underneath, that's where we need to investigate a bit more. And if that happens, just let me know, because it could be double ups and transfers, things like that. There's all sorts of things that could throw it out. So just, yeah, let me know, or talk to your accountant if I'm not it, and get them to have a look, because yeah, you don't want to be messing around with the Xero bank feeds, because it can throw things way out. Right. That's probably about it for now for the basics. If anyone's got any questions, I'll just double check the chat. Haven't got any for now, so I reckon we can just wrap it up. So thank you all for coming this morning. Next webinar is the how to grow your business. So that'll be a little bit more interactive, a little bit less screen sharey. Maybe I might have to practice my whiteboards to do some pictures. I'm not a very good artist, so forgive me for that. Yeah, hope to see you there. Thank you. Have a great Monday.